Tell me about cold reading.
Cold reading is a favourite topic of mine. It's the ability to come over as a brilliant palmist, clairvoyant, tea leaf reader, without knowing anything really about clairvoyance or palmistry, but actually convincing the people that you're really good. And it is a little bit of a hobby of mine because I practice at being a palmist. And in doing it, I've learned an awful lot about some of the hypnotic techniques and some of the ways that you influence people. And I have to say, I have no ability. Well, I'm going to put one caveat in at the end. In one way, I claim no ability at palmistry at all, and actually not knowing what you're doing actually helps you do it much better.
I suppose it makes you more receptive to what they're saying.
Absolutely, yes. I'm not concentrating on my technique. In fact, there's a metaphor here for a lot of the things that we do. I'm not over concentrating on my technique. I am in heart rapport with them. I am talking interesting stuff. I'm talking interesting subjects, and I am very into their response. Well, and I am leading their imagination.
I mean, generally, there are giving somebody an opportunity to talk about themselves. I'm not saying that's a negative thing, but giving them an opportunity to kind of explore their own personality aloud. They will elaborate and they will branch off all by themselves.
Absolutely. And not unlike an NLP session, you're giving somebody a safe space to talk about what's really important to them. Or to even not to talk about it, to reflect about what's really important to them. And curiously enough, as I said before in other things, I say this stuff is great fun. But two, you have a bit of a responsibility because you are creating a place where people could be suggestible, and therefore it is important you don't just know what you're doing from a palmistry point of view, but from an overall coaching point of view, you do know what you're doing because you could implant some unuseful suggestions by mistake.
Well, I mean, cold calling in particular is quite a controversial one because
cold reading, cold calling. You said cold
No,
calling.
cold reading. Cold reading. There is a difference between cold calling.
Yes, this is right. Sometimes, although you can actually say that cold. There are some cold reading techniques you can do with cold calling, and I have a view, although I don't necessarily like it, that some business consultants are brilliant at cold reading and make lots of money and totally screw up. Because they can create that impression in the first 5-10 minutes of being credible, and all they're doing is cold reading.
So it's a valuable.
I'd shoot.
It's a valuable thing for business people. I mean, I suppose there's an application anywhere that you're cunning enough to use it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's essentially, as simply as I can put this, a way of sounding as if you have a huge amount of information, but in reality it's the subject you're talking to that's generating the response that they want to hear.
Absolutely correct. I'd also add to it, it's following natural processes. It's, although consciously, it sounds like absolute drivel. If I'm saying now is you look at somebody and say, you're very confident now. You know, I'm looking at you. You're really confident. But there was a time in your life when you actually were very, very insecure, and I'm really impressed because you've had to work really hard to get to where you are now. At one level, for most people, is obvious, but at another level, it's true. Because human beings aren't all black and aren't all white. We're a concoction of different thinking systems, sometimes which are at war with one another. And funnily enough, the way we phrase things, if we're cold reading, are actually a lot truer than the communication we give normally. So I would be cautious that within it, if you learn this stuff or you get good at this stuff, you actually get good at some aspects of communication. I just make it that if you do get good at this, like I've said with all communication skills, you have a responsibility of how you use it.
Just talking about the responsibility of it, I mean, it seems to me using it in kind of the context of magic,
Yes.
it's a bit questionable in some circumstances, because there are people that make a lot of money kind of quite popularly channeling ghosts using
Yes.
cold reading skills and things like that. So it seems to me that you can get a very, very powerful response out of people, but also a bit of an ego trip, or a bit of admiration which you're maybe not deserving of.
Absolutely.
If you're faking, if you're claiming to be something you're not with it. Not a huge amount to add to that, but that's the
But
situation.
I will make a suggestion, or I'm going to make a suggestion generally, and I haven't done it myself, but I am sure for business consultants there's an element of cold reading that would dramatically improve their success. And there's a bit of me that is also worried about teaching people or developing it too much, because if they know what they're doing, that's fine, because it's a stage of the sort of business process, because you have to get rapport, you have to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. It works in there. The catch is you need real information to do a really good job, and if you fool yourself, then it will stop you doing the things that you need to do next, that will enable you to get the result that you want.
But I imagine even practicing cold reading and understanding the theory behind it would make you very effective at eliciting information from people. Even if you're not cold reading per se,
I agree with you.
picking up the techniques and the methodology to it would be very useful.
I agree.